Okay.
Thanks very much.
Over to you, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, so thank you for inviting me. My mum was from Inniskillen, and so very much half of me feels at home. So it's really actually very special, actually quite emotional going standing by the lock because she loved it here. So, and she ended up living in Stoke-on-Trent, so life doesn't always work out. Anyway, it's fantastic to be here, and the testament to so many different sorts of people from so many different backgrounds and so many of us all in the same room is because Curlews are celebrities. Look at that. They have a rightful place against all these amazing people because they draw people in, because they, whatever it is, they have a sort of star quality. I was hoping to play you the sound, but it didn't, it fell off the perch, didn't it, when we put the presentation together. But it's the combination of the sound and how they look is incredibly special. So curlews are the celebrity poster bird of the conservation world for so many environments. And if Cleopatra launched 1,000 ships, then the curlew launched a 500-mile walk for me back in 2016. And I came here to Loch Earn and was taken out onto the islands to see the birds and the quite young project then from the RSPB. Then I walked down into the south and walked through to Dublin and then on to Wales and across England, ending up on the Wash. And the reason for that walk was to find out what is it that's going on. Why did a paper come out in December 2015 saying the curlew is a bird that should be considered the conservation priority in the UK? That's quite an astonishing phrase when you look back at old books that said the curlew was widespread and numerous. And suddenly it's something is seriously wrong. It was telling us that our landscapes are not working for ground nesting birds. So lots of things has happened. That's me ending my walk, and I documented the walk and what I found in a marvellous book, which I think makes a fabulous Christmas present. Written, it's really good, and obviously for sale at the back of the room. So, but also what it did was it instigated 4 national conferences. I stood in a farmyard in Southern Ireland and thought, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is so upsetting, we're going to have to get people together. So there's the Irish conference, you can see top left. The bottom left is the English conference. Then there was bottom right, the All Wales Curlew Conference. That launched, I can't never say, Glenveneer Cymru. Sorry, Welsh people in the room. Gulveneer Cymru, sorry. The English one launched the Curlew Forum. The Irish one was the beginnings of the Curlew Conservation Programme, and the Scottish one bumped curlews up the agenda for working for waders, of which Patrick is a part. I also started World Curlew Day, and on which is April the 21st. So engrave that date on your souls, because that's a day to get communities together. That's a day to hang your hat on. That's a day to have the cupcake sale or the talk or the walk out to find curlews or whatever it is to raise awareness about curlews and their decline. It's really useful to have a World Day. April the 21st is the first laying date on average of curlews in Europe. It's also the feast day of St. Beino, and St. Beino is the patron saint of curlews. Who knew? And he's a Welsh saint, and he blessed curlews and wanted their nests to be protected forever. So I think we should all actually raise a little prayer to St. Beino, because I think that needs a bit of a refresh upstairs, please, St. Beino. And do you know how you start a World Day? Anybody done it? You just tell people. You get a logo and you pass it around and you say, let's make April the 21st a World Day. And somehow if it beds in, and it's fantastic to see now events happening from as far afield as Australia to America and across Europe for World Curlew Day. So I'm so moved by that. Also, the celebrity curlew ended up at number 10 Downing Street, where we had a meeting of policymakers and scientists. That was in 2018. And you can see Andy Hoodless there. Give us a wave, Andy, who's going to hear later. There you go. Anybody else here that was at that one? And that was a really special meeting. And that was the founding, really, the first meeting that started us talking about the Curlew Recovery Partnership. And who knew that King Charles loves curlews? I didn't know until he organised 2 of his own meetings, one in a hotel in Dartmoor and one at Highgrove. And at the hotel in Dartmoor, I think it was that one, where someone said in the discussion session, I think that we should have a BBC documentary on curlews because it's so important and all this is, and we should tell everybody. And because I have a background and I worked for the BBC Natural History Unit for 25 years, I said, look, I'm afraid that just will never happen. Curlews don't have teeth and claws. They don't eat antelopes. You're never going to get a documentary on curlews through the system. And Prince Charles, as he was then, stood up and said, I entirely disagree. I said, curlews are just, basically, they're not sexy enough. And he stood up and said, I entirely disagree with you. He said, I think curlews are damnably sexy. So, which is great, I think. So, and then, as so kindly said, Curlew Action was started to do the public outreach, the networking, the awareness raising. That's our USP. And we've just secured a match funding donation. So if you feel like donating to us, you can double your money. But that's so how much has happened? Then we had the Curlew Recovery Partnership set up. And I'm the chair, Ryan, who we'll hearing from later. Ryan and I work together. And that's a round table. Again, partnership, this word that's I think we're going to hear a lot of today. Organisations that are very different, all sitting around the table together saying, we're going to put any differences aside, or we're going to face our differences and find a way through, because this is too important to just be dropped because we find issues too difficult to talk about. And we've been going now for nearly 3 years, and we still all really like each other. So I think the Curlew Recovery Partnership is a very good, if you like, a sort of flagship organisation, a round table of organisations that are coming together around something that's very loved. So, if that wasn't enough, the Curlews appeared in the government's 25-year environment plan, where the government pledged to put a lot of effort into saving species that are endangered, and it was only the curlew and the hen harrier that got an actual mention. So, you know, we are talking about a star bird here. We are talking about that celebrity that I started off with. And since 2015, look at the number of curlew projects, of which this is probably one. That was a BTO survey that tried to find out how many. Curlew Forum identified, I don't know how many curlew projects we've got in the Curlew Forum now, but it must be around 15 at least. All different, all grassroots, all working together. That's on top of all the other curlew projects which are happening more formally. So there is absolutely no doubt curlews are on the agenda. And all this work has just bedded in what we know they need. They need protection from predators, as Michael has just run through. They need more sympathetic farming practices, and we need to find ways to help farmers, to help birds. Forestry, which Patrick's going to go into in a minute, swallowing up their habitat. We've also know through all the research just how interlocked we are with the rest of Europe. These are not just British birds. These are not just birds that belong to England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. These are birds that belong to the whole European continent, and we have to look after them together. So these are European species. To think that it's just us that have to do it, we have to work with our colleagues right across the continent. To that end, Curlew Action is putting on a field worker conference in February, where field workers from across Europe are coming together to talk about all that practical stuff that we share. And maybe we can learn from each other. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll give that a go. That's the idea of this field worker workshop. If you want to know more about that, let me know, because that's limited places, and that's happening in February. We know from tagging that it's not just the migrations in the wintertime That's Rachel Taylor there from the BTO, finding out how birds are using the landscape in the breeding season. We didn't know they moved around so much all the time. Really big travellers, even when they're breeding. Drones helping us to find nests, electric fences, data loggers, cameras. Look, who knew sheep ate a lot of curlew eggs? Head starting, which I don't think we're talking much about today, but is something that's happening in Southern Ireland, as well as about 6 or 7 projects, is it, Andy and Ryan? Head starting in England, pumping birds out, captive bred curlews. When I did my walk in 2016, someone said to me, do you know what, I think we need to start farming curlews, and I actually laughed. 7 years we're farming curlews. But are we winning? It's a celebrity. It's got so much happening. It's got so much love. Are we winning? I don't know. Are we winning? I want to be really positive, but this map, this relentless decline, this disappearing from landscapes where they once thrived, we don't see much of an upturn yet. So early days, though. 7 years is not a long time for a long-lived bird. So, as Michael and as people have been saying already this morning, it's about partnership. And that sense of partnership has grown even just in the last 2 or 3 years. That sense that this belongs to nobody, this belongs to all of us. This isn't black, white, in, out, yes, no, whatever. It's not that. It's about coming together to making this happen, because the issues curlews face are systemic, they're big, and they're long-term. And we're not going to face them at all on our own. So partnership, yes. So this change, this sense of shift that's going on is really heartening. So maybe. But there is one other issue, though, and the last thing I'll mention, that we do have to be careful, because I'm beginning to pick up a bit of celebrity cooling with curlews. If people think that all we talk about is curlews, then I think that's a problem. They're saying, you got lots of money, you got lots of people. You know, it's not all about... the number of times recently I've heard people say to me, it's not all about curlews, you know. Well, of course it isn't. And we all know it isn't just about curlews. Curlews stand. They're a sexy little umbrella species for so much else. And I think we need to start talking about that more, that this is about curlews and it's about their landscapes and the life that lives alongside them. So that was my message for you today. Let's get together a lot more, with a lot more intensity. Let's see the curlew as standing for so much more than just the curlew. And I'm really looking forward to hear everybody else. Thank you.